the starting point in the proceeding is to probably just reiterate the intent of what we're trying to do. So I'll just take a minute to just go through what this whole webinar is about. So the webinar is really meant to address two parties. So the first party is one who's kind of stagnated in their career and is looking for upward trajectory. And in the upward trajectory, they are specifically looking for opportunities, avenue, and guidance on how they actually move for kind of from where they are. And the second party to the webinar is one who wants to move sideways. The radical ones who decide, look, this is not my path, I've got a different path. And the intent for those ones is really to look at what's the mindsets, what's the thought process, and what's the idea of pivoting from one career to another. And the intent in the end, or what will be success for the webinar, for us who've actually developed a series, is to make sure that we can move from just motivating people to inspiring them to actually have sustainable actions they can actually implement to pivot their career upwards or sideways. That's really the main intent of the webinar. And maybe just now to quickly just go into the housekeeping very quickly. So the housekeeping, I've got like 3 announcements to make. It's a webinar, so you're all gonna be muted. But we encourage you to chat, to bring any burning platform, any point you think is really important or pretty cool, you can actually share, put it in the chat. That said, put all your questions in the Q&A. We're gonna try to allocate a lot of time to answer most of them, and if not, we'll still go have a session after this where we just focus on answering the question. While we're broadcasting on the webinar, we're gonna be live on Facebook, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We're live on Facebook, right? I'm not sure. Are we live on Facebook on Manda's page or on BTS page? One of the two will confirm where we are live. We'll probably put it in the chat. Good. Yeah. Go for it, Manda.
All right, and everyone is encouraged to, share their business contacts on the chat. But I think where we want to have the questions clear is in the Q&A. And also we would like to thank our sponsors, BTA. Getting the Zoom license is not was not sponsored by Zoom. So BTA, Biotech Africa Technologies, have been generous, and because a lot of you have been excited about the webinar, they've increased the licenses to accommodate a lot more people. So a shout out to them. They do great things. Check out their webpage and check out their Facebook page as well. So before going any further, one of the things that we have decided to do is start some micro lessons as well in the chats and in the webinar. And one of the first ones that we're doing is around thinking traps. And thinking traps are things that often cause a lot of panic and anxiety during these times. And simply put, they are patterns that prevent us from seeing the possibilities in situation. Often they have a very negative outlook. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people feel stuck, and they also kill creativity. Now, I just want to share 3 thinking traps that I think that are very applicable in pivoting your career, and maybe you can be aware of them and reflect on them during this lockdown. I know we are going to level 3, where maybe some people will be consuming other beverages to calm their nerves down. But the first one is the all or nothing trap. So this happens when you see things in absolutes. So it's either black or white, and you fail to see the gray in the middle. The second one is when you downplay the positive. So you dismiss anything which is a positive quality or a behavior achievement by telling yourself that they are not important, they don't matter, right? And the third one is negative filtering. And this happens when we focus on the negative things. So we fail to see any of the positives in the situation. And I'd like to hear some of your comments on, you know, what you think some of those thinking traps and your views are on them. But I'd like to share two ways that you can maybe deal with these thinking traps. The first one is reframing. It's something that Dan does a lot, and for this reason, that's why I often go to him and, you know, to discuss things and ask him to help me see things in a different way. And really, reframing is about changing the way you see a problem and an issue. And often kids do that very well. You know, sometimes kids will be able to see things that we adults don't see. And that's a technique even where psychologists often help people to solve their problems by trying to help them reframe the situation. For myself, one example is last year I was trying to qualify for comrades a long time ago when running was still allowed. And I had an injury which I've since tried to treat, and it's not, you know, it had not been recovering. And you can imagine being for those who are runners, you know, running is one of the ways that we relieve stress. So rather than getting stuck in that, which I did for a while, but I snapped out of it and realized, look, I'm going to try and find something that I could replace running with. And since then, I have started cycling, which funny enough has helped me lose some weight. You know, and it's something that I've certainly enjoyed. And up to now, I've not, you know, had any injuries. The second one is around playing to your strengths, you know, knowing and playing to your strengths. Our guest for next week, Mamello, you know, used to write a blog, and she talks about how when she interviews people, the one thing that she tries to see is, are they aware of their strengths? Often she says she hardly goes to the weaknesses. For those of you who are old enough, will remember Baby Jake Matlala, who was a South African and world champion boxer, but the guy's probably 1.5 meters tall. You know, rather than, you know, comparing himself to some of the big boxers, he tried to find ways around how does he play to his strengths. And often he'll be punching the opponents in the stomach and knocking out their wind. And really, those are the two things that I would like to leave with you around how do you, you know, deal with thinking traps, and how do you reframe problems, and how do you play to your strengths. Over to you, Dan.
Okay, I think let's get right into it. Tebogo is itching, although for somebody who does yoga, you should be really calm. Okay, so our first ever speaker, and I think we're just very grateful to have somebody who's given us the time and the space to just come and tell her story around a perfect, probably, definition of career pivot, where it's kind of upwards and actually it's also sideways. So it's like there, 45 degrees. Generally not very easy to do, but we felt that this is a perfect candidate for us. So our next speaker is Tebogo Maserumule. She started, from what I understand, from kind of the finance, and then went into BI, into management consultants, into project management, and then yoga. I don't know if the yoga is the end state, but there's some yoga in there which is actually going to add. And and she's going to probably tell us about it. So Tebogo, off to you.
Oh, thank you, Dan and Manda. So this platform is it's very exciting for me, and I couldn't say no to Dan. I mean, it's so difficult to say no to an executive coach when they want to push you to certain spaces.
That's fantastic to hear.
Okay, so I think before we start, I would just like us, I mean, I'm a yogi. We're going to start with a short meditation. And I'm just going to guide you on breathing exercises, which could be quite useful in the times that we're living in now. as most of us are going through a lot of anxiety, loss of focus. I mean, there's a lot that is happening. People can't sleep. So I think this, just knowing how to breathe properly can help us. Because if our mind is scattered, our force is limited. So we need to now bring back the mind into the center so that we can be able to control it. So we're going to just making sure that everybody, wherever you are, you're making sure that you're seated upright. Your shoulders are relaxed, you're not tensing up. And you're ready to take it all in. Just be open to it. Okay. And how this breathing technique works is that when you inhale, you fill your tummy with air. And when you exhale, you're just bringing everything back to normal. So oftentimes we lose that kind of breathing because that's mostly how children, when they're born, breathe, but we lose that touch when we grow up because we're forever on our phone, driving and doing all this crazy stuff. And so we're going to do about 5 breathing exercise, and we will just hit it on, and I'll tell you all about me after.
Okay.
So sitting up
straight. Do we keep our eyes closed, or do we?
Yes, we can close them, you can open them. It doesn't really matter, because I know this can be daunting for a new beginner. So whichever way, you can close your eyes, you can open them. So you're going to put one hand on the chest, and you put the second hand on the tummy so that you can just feel the tummy expand and feel the tummy going back to normal. And you're going to do it, like I said, count to 5. So we inhale, feel your tummy expand. Hold it there, and slowly and gently we just bring it back. That was the first one. Let's try better. And we inhale. And slowly exhale. Okay, inhale. And release. The fourth one, just hold it a little bit more. Inhale. And exhale slowly. Last one, inhale. And gently exhale. I think this is quite a great way to start your day or to end your day. So you can take it and run with it at home.
Thanks for that. Tebogo, you've just reminded me of something I learned in my corporate days, called the 4x4. As Manda says, I've got a million frameworks. Yeah. What it says is that when you're about to present and you get anxious, take 4 breaths. So you breathe in, pause for 4, count to 4, breathe out to 4. I didn't know it was yoga. Also, I just need to say.
Oh, it is.
But it was called the 4x4 at the time. So it helps you in front of public and stuff. Good.
Yeah, so I use it also when I present. It's funny how behind the scene, before people see people on stage, what happens. It's a whole lot of things happening back there.
Good. All right. Go for it.
So who am I? I'm a lady born in Limpopo, the rural villages of Limpopo called, I moved between 2 villages. So I was born in Rarakhwadi. Now my family moved to Timenyani. That's where we reside now. And I think in Metri, around high school, I'll just start from the high school days to say the only subject that really fascinated me was economics, because I mean, obvious reasons, money. And I didn't like mathematics. It just looked like a whole lot of work. I never got the concept. And as a result, my mom wanted me to be a nurse, which didn't make sense because I can't. I'm a natural, but I cannot heal wounds. I can't do those kind of things. And I think in Matric, my older sister told me about information technology, because I think 2001, 2002, it was booming. And I had no idea what it was, but I was like, if I don't have to do nursing, I will do that. But I'll still need to do economics, because I mean, the concept of your own money, because accounting was more like managing somebody else's money, and economics was like, okay, this is your money. So, okay, understanding the concept of money, I loved it. And so I studied my undergrad at University of Pretoria, majoring in information systems, accounting, and economics. And at the end of the degree, I
And
started,
Tebogo, the
yeah.
3 subjects, was it by choice, all of them? Was it by choice?
So
Was it
the
any
degree I
pressure?
chose was BCom in Financial Information Management. And what was in it? I saw the information system, which was fascinating, and economics. Actually, it was information system and accounting, but I was like, can I add an additional subject? They're like, yeah, you can. I was like, I'm still want economics because the other BCom degrees didn't have information systems and economics. So that was my choice.
Good.
So finishing my degree, I was like, okay, apparently I need to get a job. But at that stage, I was too young. I didn't understand the concept of having focus, purpose, and all that. So just moving with how everybody moved to say, okay, I need to find a job. And I started at the financial institution as an intern in 2007 and moved into business analysis. Also that, I was still very closed up. I had no idea what I needed to do. So I was like, okay, so these are the roles that I need to go through. So I'll just take business analyst, which was in IT space. And what I loved about business analysis was the interaction with the user. That's when then I started noticing that there's something I love here, the interaction with the end user. But it had documentation side where you have to document stuff. I didn't like that. Maybe because I felt like I got a degree. I didn't get, I was not skilled enough to understand what that degree was meant to give me, but I was lacking my writing skills. So, but interacting with users, meaning communication, meaning helping them. So that's when I started to realize that there's something I love in that. And, but I thought I should go back to school and study my honors degree to help me with my writing skills.
But why?
And
like how, like from where? Like do you just wake up one day and just decide you're gonna study? What was the driver?
So I realized that with the degree, I didn't have much that I had to offer. Really, I needed to upskill myself more to say, okay, if this is the working environment, I'm not fitting in, I'm lacking something. Let me go back to school and enhance my writing skill, for instance, and my research skill, something that will give me the edge. And I studied honors in business informatics, which sounded very fancy. And it was basically still economics and information system. And completing that, then that's when I moved to say, okay, business analysis, I like it, but I don't find, there's something missing. I need to find something that really tickles the core of my being, you know? I moved to consulting, and that's when I was like, I need to learn about leadership. I need to learn about communication, and I need to learn about interpersonal skills. How am I like if I'm thrown in there alone and in a team? So that's
so Tebogo, just a step back, right? So you now are sort of studying economics and information system. Like, how do you even just start thinking about I'm missing something called leadership and stuff? Like, what happened? What triggered? I need to do something. Was it like career opportunity? Was it growth? What was the thing?
It was more of observing my boss and what she could do. Like my boss was a project manager at that time. And I'm like, there's something that this lady is doing that I like, but I was terrified to tell her to say, I like your job. You know, like, I was like, I like what she's doing, but it's not business analysis. But maybe let me go back to school to just learn more and also move into consulting to see if I can gain some skills of independence. Because when you start in an environment as an intern, I always felt like I was a baby because my boss took me from nowhere. So I couldn't stand up and say, I don't agree with you. I can't do this. I felt like I was in a cage.
And tell me, Tebogo, I mean, look, I like the fact that you mentioned that you come from a village, and one of the things that, you know, in coming from Limpopo as well, you know, and being almost being indoctrinated with overly respective behavior. You know, you don't offend anyone, you don't demand anything. How do you feel that impacted how you came across as at work? Because I was quite intrigued by the fact that you like something in your boss, but you felt that you didn't have the confidence to actually, make that known.
Yeah, I mean, it did have an impact because I remember one day my boss said, Tebogo, look me in the eyes, because I was forever and couldn't look her in the eyes, you know? That's how I grew up to say, and she was so frustrated. And I grew up, don't look other people in the eyes. And every time she comes and I couldn't look in the eyes, and she's like, damn it, just look me in the eyes. It's like, oh my gosh. So things like that really have an impact, but you don't know how to just get out of the shell because that's how you grew up. So it's a process. Hence, I was like, let me go into management consulting and try something, a different environment. And in consulting, you get thrown into different clients. You get experiencing different organizational culture, and you're on your own.
And this was after your honors?
Yes. So that literally forced me to fast track to that level, because I was getting frustrated to say, I hate where I am, but I need to find something that, like I said, tickle the core of my being, but at the same time, I can stand up straight and tell somebody or a senior manager to say, no, that is actually wrong, you know?
And when it came to the pivot to management consultants, was that easy? Was it as a matter of just waking up one day, tomorrow you're management consultants? What were the emotions or the thinking process around changing careers? Because that's one of the biggest ones people face. You're going into a new field.
New field. I think because growing up, we moved a lot in the family. Like I don't have issues moving around. Like, yeah, so that is not an issue for me to say, let me jump in. But the minute I got there, the whole territory is completely different. Nobody's coming with me to a client to say, this is Tebogo, it's gonna gather your requirements, it's gonna look at your it's gonna do facilitation with your bosses. And I mean, one of my clients was the military. There, everybody salute, and I'm working with this old Afrikaans guys, and it was, yeah, initially it was quite hard, but the minute, because I am a very open person, the minute I communicate with them in terms of what I'm here to do, that I'm good at, and I could see people opening up to say, okay, this is not bad, I just needed to talk.
So I like that. So you played your strengths.
Yes, to say, you know what, let me just talk and say, this is what I'm here to do, and interact with people and try to touch them on the personal level. How was the day? What do you do after work? Things like that. That also just especially in consulting, people think you're a stranger, but the minute you get into environment and open up a bit, people tend to open up to you as well.
Yeah, and I like that. And you know, we talked about how, you know, coming from a rural background, we taught to respect, but also growing up in that environment, there is also a sense of community where you have to engage and connect with people. And I'm quite interested into how you then decided, you know, to transition out of that environment, because it sounded like you already had found something that you like, you know, you had already developed some form of confidence, and some form of independence as well. You were not that intern who was shy anymore.
Yes, you mean while I'm at consulting, right?
Yeah.
So after some time, I realized that the client that I was assigned to were extremely, I mean, one was like beyond Hammanskraal in a military camp, and one was like beyond Germiston. So after some time, I felt like, okay, I kind of like the strength that I've or the skills that I've gained, but I'm no longer getting joy in traveling, firstly, and also in the kind of leadership that I am under. Because, so there's this theory, let me just divert and talk about this theory of motivation that I live by. It got like two components. It's by Herzberg. So it says there's motivating factors and there's hygiene factors. Hygiene, not like COVID hygiene, but like dissatisfier hygiene. And what it says is that, so in terms of the motivating factors, it talks about performance, job status, responsibility, opportunity for growth in an environment, right? And when you talk about the hygiene factors, how much are they paying me, the relationship with my bosses and my colleagues, and how conducive is the environment? So for me, what matters when I knew about that, through my studies, obviously, I realized that this is what I need to drive myself to say, I need to have a balance at most times. If I lose one and is mostly leaning towards the motivating factor, I am gone.
Okay.
So that was the motivation for leaving the consulting space.
Yeah, and look, Dan, you can go for it.
So I had two questions, right? So I was going to take you back to say, when you did the transition, was it because people told you about consultants? Was it something you researched? Was it your network which helped you leverage? And were you able to grow? How did you actually grow going to start in a new field? Because you started fresh. You almost started as an intern in a new area. You have to start from start from the bottom. So how did you get to the top?
So I think how I knew about the consulting was through a colleague who moved into the same similar space, and the way they explained and everything, I just thought, okay, this is something that could actually build me towards where I need to go, because it will expose me to environment that is different. It will build those interpersonal skills that I'm lacking, because I needed to find out how I'm performing, not being watched, or in a, like, you know, interpersonal is about how are you performing as an individual and how are you performing in a team. So I needed to strengthen my individual performance so that I can be able to say, this is what I'm good at in this kind of task. And I got that a lot. And also, well, I mean, communication has improved now because I've been exposed and I've found the trigger to say, okay, I need to communicate. That's all I needed to do. I've gained that I couldn't do while I was an intern. And I think moving to a different space now, I knew that I've gained a bit of strength in certain areas. So yeah, from there, I found this lovely organization. It's like a state-owned organization. That's when I was like, I need to go back to business analysis and see and do fully as a senior business analyst now, because now I'm like, I've gained certain aspect that can make me a senior business analyst, to be able to make decisions, to be able to lead, to be document requirements, which I was struggling with initially. And through consulting, I've gained those skills. So in terms of moving into the state-owned, I found that the organization is quite raw, which is what I loved. So it's more like consulting, but not really consulting, because I got there's a role, but there's so much that one can do. And because I was so hungry to learn, and the senior management also were just generous to say, if you want to do something, okay, do it. But it was about me communicating now to say, I'm a business analyst, but there's no project manager here. Now I'm looking back to that momentum. I mean, the first intern environment where I saw my boss as a project manager, and I liked what she could do, and me as a business analyst. And I'm like, I'm here. There's no that role of my boss, but I want to do it now. Let me trial it in this environment.
Yeah, Tebogo, I would like to maybe just go back on that, on the pivot from consulting into this new role.
Yeah.
I think you indicated that you were very clear of what you didn't like about your consulting job, the travel and that. So how did you know that you were making the right move going to this particular organization? Because it seems that it's only once you came in and realized the art of the possible, but before that, what sort of led you to say, this is the path that I will take?
I mean, basically, when somebody recruits, they send you a specification, and based on what you just judge to say, you know what, this kind looks, your instinct tells you to say, this kind look like a kind of environment. I'm not looking for a financial institution. That's one thing about that time in my life. I told myself that I don't want a big company, because I started there, I didn't like it. So at this point, I need a smaller environment where I can make actually a bigger impact. For me to grow, maybe I'll consider the bigger environment later, but I knew that I don't want to go into banking, I don't want to go into a financial institution, and I just need a smaller organization whereby I can just fully apply myself. So when that opportunity happened, I realized the organization is not big, it's quite smaller, and the requirements that they need for a senior business analyst was something that I could do quite well. So I took a chance, which was a risk. And when I got there, I realized, I think within like 6 months, to say, okay, this is fresh, this is raw. They don't have systems, these people. So whatever is thrown at me. And I think this thing of having a great leadership as well, going back to my theory to say, what were my motivating factors? I realized very early that, okay, the hygiene factors was extremely strong. The relationship with colleagues and with the bosses, the CIOs, the COOs were quite good in a way that I got there, I could see potential to say, she's young, she's willing to learn, let's throw her in. And some of the great projects I've done there, which, the decision, saving the organization a lot of cost and improving their audit standing, and that was liberating.
So there's a lot of stories in there, and I think also Amanda's got a lot of questions. Two things I want you to explain, and I know that when I did my broadcast, I went into detail, but I want to hear your story. How do you get leadership visibility? A lot of people struggle with what that means. And I believe your career growth upwards cannot happen. I'm one of those who preach to young come and say, you need people to see your work, because if they don't see it, they don't know, they probably even assume you're not doing it, you're not making an impact. That's probably the first one. Maybe let's answer that and then maybe we can go to the next. I don't know if Amanda, you want to ask around career visibility.
No, let's go for it.
Good.
You really need to make sure that your work is visible. So what I did there was, some of the first project, I was asked by the COO to say, we have this system that we tried to develop before you. Can you write a feasibility in terms of, do we check it? When we check it, we have fruitless expenditure. If we renew it and make it work, it has to work. They were like, it has to work. We can't have another scenario whereby we're going to check it out.
And when you're scared, you're not going to be able to meet the expectation?
I think I was just too naive, and I was really willing to take the risk because I was craving for this kind of work for so long, to hear an executive, somebody saying, this is the work and this is how it contributes to the organizational turnaround, That for me was like a kid in a candy shop. That was epic. And I did so well that I had to write a report. I had to say, okay, we're not checking the system. We want to enhance them. My whole business analysis skills that I've gained through the intent where I started, and consulting skills of communicating and making sure that I understand processes has fit into where I was now. And it was a success. And also in terms of some of the executive would be to say, okay, when I started, they didn't have like a CIO. And when the CIO came in, she was okay with me helping her with the work. We needed to do a strategy document. And I was like, let me start it and then you can edit it, right?
So you actually volunteered. You're like,
yes.
Hey, I'm here.
Yes.
I want to work with you. I want to be a thought partner.
Document. I want to do ITIL processes. Yet I never studied ITIL, but I needed to do service management procedures and things like that. And I think that was the best, some of the best decisions that I've done, and also best work I've done for free because that was the CIO's job. But I've managed to say, I want to do the strategy documents. I want to understand the whole IT governance. I am going to the ICT steering committee with you. I'm coming to the board. If they need explanation about why didn't we check that system, please tell me, I can come in and explain. That was me. I was really into it. And they gave me that platform to sit in the board, some of the board meetings. And I remember the CEO then, I think she's such a remarkable lady. Just looking at me and laughing, she's like, I wish I could take you to Parliament with me one day because you seem so, I don't know, but it was great. It was great for me to sit and say, decisions, if we're procuring a system, these guys are not best because they haven't done anything in the market and things like that, just making decisions and not being afraid. I was just so naive, and I think that helped me a lot. But the trick came when, after doing all these processes, optimizing processes, writing strategy, implementing systems, then I get stuck after 3 years to say, I've done everything. then I wrote a motivation to say I need a salary increase because now I'm worth more, right?
Yep. Yep.
And it was rejected.
Yeah, and often and often afraid to ask for more, right?
Yes.
But I'm just out of time. We have 9 questions in the Q&A, right?
Okay.
And I would like to maybe start looking at that. And the first one is from Moho Muleki. She says, I use a step-by-step approach to get things done for solving problems. I want to identify all the steps involved in a particular task again, and can never begin any project before getting a full view of the steps, what's required, etc. This often leads me to a paralysis of sorts, and I get exhausted from getting all the information to the point where I end up giving up on an idea. Is this a thinking trap? How do I get things done if the step-by-step process doesn't work? Yeah. So that's a very loaded question, and I guess when Tebogo is still thinking about it, maybe I can touch a bit on the thinking trap. I think it is. I think there is an element of wanting to be perfect, right? So
Yeah.
it's either everything has to be in place, or you don't move at all. And often, one of the things that we talk about with Dan is the business case might not make sense, right? So you might not everything will make sense. And if you wait for that, you would not be able to continue. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're spot on, because most of the time, if you're going to try to say, I'm afraid to fail so bad that I want to just make sure that everything is covered before I roll the project out, that's already a killer, because sometimes you just need to just look into the now and focus on what you need to do for now, and the later steps, you need to figure it out later. But yeah, that can be a trap to try to set everything already before even the project starts.
Good. There was a question. Did I just lose it? Okay. It said, how do you define a successful career pivot or an unsuccessful one? So you who's even moved companies, I know we didn't get to the stage of even entrepreneurship and yoga. How would you say I was successful or I wasn't successful? What would be your indicators for that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, which one should we start with? I mean, I think successful career pivot cater for what I've just said about this state-owned, where I got in there and transitioning from the consulting into that space to say I got in there with the purpose to say I want to just pivot as soon as possible and take any opportunity to upskill myself. And in terms of the unsuccessful one, I mean, if you're a risky person like me, you will definitely fail in some instances, whereby I took a decision to go into a different environment. And when I got there, there's a company that I spent a month in. After a month, if something is not for me, I'm gone. I'm not gonna waste anybody's money and my precious time. After a month, if I realize this is not aligned, bye-bye.
Actually,
so that is
can we maybe just double click on that? Because, I was actually talking to somebody about today that, how do you know when it's time to go? Because sometimes, there's an aspect of being patient and working through the change process, right?
Yeah.
And there's also the risk of staying too long in a space. What was the defining moment for you when you said, look, this is not for me, within that first month?
Remember my
because
theory?
By the way, it actually means that you made the decision before the month ended, right? So it was probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks. First day, we don't know. Can you maybe tell us more about that one?
Remember my theory? So this theory I've got from a book called How Will You Measure Your Life? It's quite an oldish book, but
Clayton Christensen.
Yes.
That
is a great book. When I bought it, I didn't understand it. I read it and halfway I checked it away. But years later, I went back to it. So that theory of saying when I got there, what are my hygiene factors? Are they satisfied? Are they there? Some of them, but it's a balance. And what are my motivating factors? If I knew that this boss of mine, it's this kind of personality, and I read another book about personality, Personality Plus at Work. It's a great book. Then I get there, I know, okay, this is the personality I deal with, and I try to keep it up. I mean, you can see and understand people within like a week. If I know that this is not going well, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to, my brand is very important. I don't want to come across as somebody who's not doing their job. It just has to end very quick, because also I cannot fake things. I'm a very open person. I'm not going to get to work and smile, or else I know that I just want to swear and be, like, so that it becomes so difficult for me. So I just have to, that's what makes me, help me.
I was going to add to it, but you mentioned something where I want to ask your definition. You said your brand comes first. What's this brand you're talking about? What does it even mean in a workplace?
Okay, so I would say a brand is your culture, it's your vibe. So it's what you define as a person. I am a very, integrity is my thing. I'm not loyal. I don't have a piece of loyalty, but my loyalty is more integrity. Because with integrity, it can't go wrong. Loyalty is whereby you say, okay, if somebody is doing wrong and I'm loyal, I have to be loyal. So brand to me, it's integrity. And I know that I have to do something right.
Good.
So that's where, and I mean, what you perceive as a brand to me is what we call a reputation in my knowledge. To say, when you think there was this brand, it's a reputation from the outside.
Yeah. Another maybe quick question here, which came from Tulani Gina. He's in Luxembourg, in Europe, probably our only attendee in Europe, and he's asking about, taking us back to, when you were still an intern, when you realized that you had a writing challenge.
Yeah.
And his question is, if that wasn't an issue, would you have stayed in that place? Would you have studied further? What would you have done?
Okay, I would possibly have moved within maybe the organization. But the person that I am is not one to stay in one place for too long. I feel like it's just a waste of my time.
Tell us more about that. Because
I mean, we all have different personalities.
I mean, particularly when you think about it, right? When people employ people, they look at, some of the things that they look at is, how long do you stay in a place? And often if you move around too much, often it's said that is a disadvantage.
Apparently, but I haven't seen it. But thing is, I want to get there and do something and see it live. This is what I've delivered, and I don't want to see it and not be too busy. That is extremely frustrating for me. I think maybe that's why when I got to the organization that I grew, I realized that the pace was a bit slowish, but I'm going to make it fast by adding more responsibilities.
But a question from Mishek Shabalala. He says, when you want to pivot to a new career, how does one assess this new unknown avenue to see if it's the right one?
I mean, you just dive in. Some of the environment, your mind needs to be prepared to take a risk. And you have to just take a risk, unfortunately, because nothing is guaranteed. It's an unknown. You can't know. There's no way that you can know that, okay, maybe that environment, maybe I know somebody there. Just, if you understand what you're good at, sometimes you just need to say, you know what, I have skills, I have knowledge, I have experience, I'm very educated, let's just tackle it in.
So I could also add on to that. I would come and say, look, there's an aspect where you need to have a vision of what you want. There has to be an aspiration for what you want. And you should be drawn to what you want, even if the environment doesn't allow it. And that's one way of understanding kind of what your purpose, and it feeds into your brand. And then you talked about integrity. And just to end it, I would say, where passion meets skills, that's where your purpose is. You need to find that equation which says my passion has met my skill, and somewhere there you are gonna find a home.
That is so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, and let's move to the next question. You know, we had 30 minutes initially. We moved it to an hour. It seems the hour is not enough again. Next question, Shamin Mafa out in Polokwane. She says, can you elaborate a bit more on the hygiene/motivation factor theories, and probably where can we get a bit more information on it?
Okay, so where you can get information, you can just, I think I've first heard it when I was doing either my master's or my honors, but also it's called a theory of motivation, I think, yeah, and it talks about two factors. So you have your motivating factors and you have your hygiene factors. So your motivating factors talks about performance at work, job status, your responsibility. Is there room for growth in this space? Is there recognition in this space, right? Hygiene factor talks about the like salary, your working condition. Do you have a great relationship with your colleague, with your line manager? Is things like that. So for me, the minute I get in there, I remember in one of the companies, I got there within 6 months, I got a promotion, and within a year, they changed the whole management, and everything just became different because now my hygiene factor was completely out. And after 3 years, I was like, I have to leave because that relationship is not there anymore. The working conditions have changed, and meaning the hygiene factors is like 5%. The motivating factors, obviously, I cannot perform as best if the relationship with my new manager is not as great. The working conditions have changed, meaning my performance is going to be affected. My responsibilities, there won't be a room for growth, definitely, because I even tried to apply for a senior position and I was just chucked out.
You look like you are driving the career growth. You are deliberate about it. You are putting it out there, and you had to get the no. You wanted to hear the no.
Yes, it's always better if you get that kind of feedback to say yes or no, then we can move forward. Nothing in between.
Do you believe in this thing of I'll just work hard and they'll figure it out? They'll see it.
No, no, nobody will see it.
Okay,
So,
the next question comes from Anonymous. So very interesting. It says, I sometimes feel like my mind is blocked in a way that prevents me from bringing up ideas. But when others bring ideas to the table, I connect with them and I'm able to execute it according to requirements. What exercise can you, I guess, help me open up my mind? I think that's what I wanted to say. That's a very interesting one.
Yeah, maybe you just need to meditate and be mindful. I'm joking, but that's part of it. But I think that's a great question because sometimes you get that block. But I think training, just go for training. There's creativity training. There's all those I've invested a lot in as well. Critical thinking training and workshops. Just go look at those ones and invest yourself. And also a coach. Get yourself a coach. To help you. Maybe there's something deeper that somebody from the outside needed to sit with you down and just tackle everything so that we can see where's your strength and your weaknesses and why you struggle with certain things. Coach can do that quite well.
And I mean, just to add to that, I think part of being creative could be part of the challenge with the creativity could be you are stuck in a thinking trap, and maybe try and reflect around that as well. Reframing is one of the things that helps you. And by the way, when you reframe things, it does not mean that everything comes out correctly, right?
Yeah.
It just forces you to think differently, right? It forces you to think differently. I was actually listening to a John Maxwell webcast where he talked about that when you go through difficult times, it actually forces you to think differently. And sometimes reframing is one of those things that then help you to try and think differently. Another question here from Dolly Marco, who says, hi Tebogo, what is the one thing that you are proud of and what are your current goals?
Oh my gosh, what am I proud of? I am proud of the woman that I've become. I am so proud of myself. I think if you knew or you know my upbringing and I get very emotional. It's quite an intense one, how I grew up and the things I've experienced as a child and how I've managed to now deal with them and come to the lady that I am today. I am so proud of myself. Honestly, that's one major achievement. And she said, what are my current goals?
What's your
I mean, I'm a work in progress. So I believe I'm a work in progress. I'm currently learning, and the main thing that I would like to work on is it's my ability to say yes. You know, that thing of just saying I grew up in a certain way and I get too modest when coming to myself and accept certain things. And I'm working on that to say, girl, you're doing so great and you're so good. I am working, like that's something that my goal at the moment.
Good. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the poll because you're actually sort of answering questions. Did you look at it? Did you look at maybe we just go through one of them? I don't know if you can pop them again.
Yeah, so
just in case you didn't see it.
Yeah, so there's this one of where do you spend most of the energy on self-investment?
What's your views of the results?
So I think most people chose mind and soul, right? And to say they're reading, playing words, strategy games, researching, and 1 and 2. Let's see, which one is the second one? Meditating and praying, which is good. 21% said on mind and 9% said soul, meditation. And I mean, meditation is quite important for me. Just being able to meditate. I know my fiance also loves to say when certain things happen, it's like, when last did you yoga? I'm like, dude, give me a break. So meditating is very important.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so we have 3 minutes to the end, so we need to wind it up. So maybe before we wind it up, it's just to probably give Tebogo a platform to just sort of, we have 3 minutes to the end, so we need to wind it up. Closing statement. So maybe before we wind it up, it's just to probably give Tebogo a platform to just sort of, so we have.
I think we're losing Dan.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, if I were to pick 3 things that are really also important to me is create a strategy for your life. It's very important to have a clear purpose about why you're here, why you're alive. And for me, it started with the idea of a vision board, and those close to me knows that I love a vision board, and the beauty of it is ticking something that is achieved on the vision board. Like, that is so exciting. So I have such a big, printed it on an A3, 2 A3s, and I usually tick if something is achieved. And it can be something things that you want to achieve in like 5, in a month, in a year, 5 years, whatever that works for you. And another thing is balancing the motivating and the hygiene factors. I just wish people can go and just check out the theory of motivation and see if there's something that they can take out of it. And also coaching, just find, if coaching you find is expensive, maybe try to find a mentor within your organization or around the people you know, because those are usually the best. Just hit them up on LinkedIn even. Like, I do send random people messages on LinkedIn to ask questions. And some do actually do. Putima Hanyele, for instance, she responded. I was like, what? So it's quite nice just to get people talking and asking questions to relevant people that you feel like you need answers to.
Good. And lastly, I know you run your own company. So maybe you can just talk about it and where people can reach out for what you actually do.
So after getting tired of moving from company to company, and I knew that I had the skills, I realized that, you know what, I need to build a model that I'm going to pilot alone first. And that's when I started my company, Dira Digital Solutions, and to say I'm going to offer IT project management, change management, as well as IT governance, meaning drafting strategy and all that. And I think a year later, I've added a reseller of laptops and things like that. And for me, it was, okay, I'm going to spend the first 2 to 3 years piloting it and seeing that if it works. And when I started, one of the fundamental lessons I've learned is that get a lawyer all the time. So that was one of the things that I've learned within the running a company. But it's quite challenging and at the same time fulfilling.
All right, fantastic. So before we go, we have a few announcements. Can we just get the our next week's speaker up?
Next speaker.
Yes,
while we're waiting for
can we just get the poster up, please, from our moderator?
While you're waiting for that, is there a question that we didn't answer? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe let's do that.
This time. Let me have a look. Answer maybe.
Yeah, maybe let's do that.
Let me have a look.
Okay, we have a speaker.
All right. Great, guys. So next week we have Mamello Silamulela, who is a managing executive
We have a speaker.
at Vodacom. All right. Great, guys. She was the regional manager. Next week we have Mamello Silamulela, division, a managing executive. Has just recently been announced as the managing executive, was the regional manager. Central. So next week we have Mamello Silamulela. She has just recently been announced as
the technology has failed us here.
For innovation strategy. She was the regional manager. Great, guys. Central. So next week we have Mamello Silamulela. She has just recently been announced as
the technology has failed us here.
managing executive for innovation strategy. She was the regional manager. Great, guys. Central. So next week we have Mamello Silamulela. She has just recently been announced. All right, we're going to end things. So Mamello will be presenting next week. She's a firehouse. And we are excited to have her, and we look forward to having you next week. We're going to end things. So Mamello will be. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.